Here we go. All right, welcome to the Power Lunch Live podcast for April 8th, 2022. It always sounds more dramatic when you say the date of something, doesn't it? So I'm your host, Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows a guy. Every week we bring together 4 or so awesome people brought together through the power of serendipity, by which I mean I don't sit down and say, okay, let's find, do these 4 guests go together? No. The universe says these 4 guests go together. We talk. It hasn't failed me yet. We always have a good time. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows a guy, and the author of this book, The Guy Who Knows a Guy. And, I said 3 or so guests. Hopefully they should come back. I'm the author of The Guy Who Knows a Guy, book on networking. I'm a networking concierge. People hire me to make introductions for them. And this show is really kind of part of what I do. It's bringing people together, making connections, introductions, all those sorts of things. And so let's meet our guests. Hopefully Dr. Catherine will return soon and fix her internet issues, but we'll start with Mark Herschberg. Tell us briefly about yourself and who you are and why you're awesome.
Hi, everyone. I am a startup CTPO, Chief Technology and Product Officer, but in the few decades of my career, I realized that there are a number of skills we need to be successful that are just never taught to us. Networking, which you focus on, Michael, negotiating, leadership, communicating, team building, all important skills, all skills companies and entrepreneurs need, but no one teaches them to us. So along the way, I helped to create MIT's famed Career Success Accelerator, where we teach these skills to our students. And then more recently, I started speaking about it and have the book and the app, the Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success, that no one taught you.
Well, that is super cool. My apologies for making him go first, for everyone else to go after him. But I'm sure Christina will be even more, at least as awesome. So, no pressure. Christina, introduce yourself. But unmute yourself first.
There we go. Hi.
That's better.
My name is Christina Lee Pratt, and I am the practitioner and teacher at Last Mass Center, which focuses on why do all of those people that are doing what Mark's talking about with all of their skills and all of their attentions in order still fail? What is going on internally that keeps people from being aligned with what they're consciously, intentionally, and educated to go do? And so I work with all of the ways that people fragment because as they've dealt with things in their life, and how to fix that fragmentation so that we can go forward in a way that has integrity, not only with ourselves and our intention, but integrity with each other, ethically and morally. So it's all about repairing connections.
All right. And yes, believe it or not, I said I don't sit down and plan out how everyone goes together, and yet they do. So, Nicole, tell us about yourself.
You're on mute.
Let me speak. There's definitely a lot of synergy in this room because we've got a lot of amazing people that are doing the same types of things from these different angles. I am the Empowerment Alchemist, and I help business owners, team leaders, and financial advisors permanently overcome their self-sabotaging behaviors, amplify their prosperity, and step into the fearless, authentic leaders that they are and that they desire to be without compromising who they are or what they love. We do that by eliminating forever the limiting beliefs that they have and really grasping into and stepping into that fearless authenticity.
All right. And Dr. Catherine, unmute and then introduce yourself. Wrong button. Maybe.
Looks like we're
there we go. My unmute was being a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
It seems to be happy now. Thank you for your patience when my internet kicked me out. I'm back. I am Dr. Catherine of Profitable Alignment. Leaders hire me to increase employee retention and company profits because most are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars on resignations, recruitments, and training. So I help them challenge today's status quo, design the tomorrow they want, and engage their current and future employees through the power of my reframe, rewrite, redesign model for organizational success. Bottom line, revenue is based on human capital and the power of alignment.
Fantastic. We have, as I said, 4 awesome and magically synergized people. So, welcome to the show. Our first topic that we're going to go over here is Mark is going to tell us a bit more about the Career Toolkit.
What we found from surveying companies, this survey has been done by multiple universities looking at what skills people want, not just in recent college graduates, but all across the spectrum of different levels of experience, different work functions. There are these universal skills, the ones I mentioned before: leadership, communication, negotiating, networking, team building, ethics, interviewing even. How often are we conducting an interview, but no one ever taught us how to interview our future coworkers? And of course, career planning, how we can actually create a career plan to say, well, here's where I am today. This is where I want to be in 10 years. Most people just cross their fingers and hope, but having a proactive plan will help increase your chances of success. So these are the skills we recognize we're missing. And we spent years developing this and teaching this. I put all into the book. Each chapter can stand alone, so you don't have to read it front to back. You can go in and say, I want to get better at networking. I'm going to jump right into that chapter. Each chapter has a mental shift, how to think about it differently, and then actionable results, things you can do to get the results you want. And as I mentioned, I created a free companion app because so often we read a book, we say, wow, that was great. I love what I got in that book, that class, that podcast even, and then you forget it 2 weeks later. Our job, all of us on stage, we're not here just to convince you to buy our program or book, whatever. We're trying to change how you operate. So to help with that, I also created the free app, the Career Toolkit app, which is linked from the webpage and free on the Android and iPhone stores. And it has a lot of the tips. So you're going to get a daily reminder of what you've learned. Or say right before you go into a networking event, you can say, what were those tips? Pull out the app, pull them up, and they're right there when and where you need them. You're on mute, Michael.
I should probably unmute myself. A fire truck was going by just as you were talking. So I definitely agree that yeah, there's a lot of those skills that people are not taught. And then I always use the analogy that kids are taught to play baseball for their entire 12, 16-year educational career. And then they arrive on the parquet that is the world. And there's, 2 big hoops up 10 feet in the air, and they got their mitt and their bat, and they're like, the ball is 10 times the size expected to be an orange. What is going on here? And yeah, not only do they not have the skills, the skills they are given are often the wrong skills in the wrong direction.
And we know that these skills are needed. These skills like networking, no one says, oh, I never knew that was important. We heard of that from day one, and yet they always forget to actually teach us how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met a kid who was, I think, 16 or so, and 16, 17. He wanted to get into sports management. And he lived in an area, there are a number of colleges around that were, had pretty solid sports programs. And the advice he was given was, don't bother contacting the guy at the top, the athletic director. They don't want to talk to some kid like you. Contact the lowest person you can get to. I'm like, that's the advice they gave? Because my advice would go straight to the top, because if your email does make it through, very few do. So that athletic director is going to be like, oh my God, yeah, I'd love to talk to a high school kid. I never get to sound really smart mentoring somebody. I'd love to at least give you 30 minutes of my time, maybe give you an internship or something. I'm like, always shoot for the top. And this was the guidance counselor or the career counselor saying, no, don't do that. No, think smaller. Make yourself smaller. Make yourself unobtrusive. That's your strategy for success.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. In fact, I tell people, go to your college alumni networks. I'm open. There's a point on my profile saying you can email me. I get maybe 1 email a year from a student. Alumni love hearing from their students, and you have alumni who are executives, who are world-class leading people. They'll be happy to respond, but you have to reach out.
Absolutely. And Christina and Nicole, feel free to jump in as well on it's an open roundtable. So not that you have to say something, but.
Well, I'm just sitting here kind of chuckling because I had a really great plan, and I was there at Smith College and running that plan, man. and it, crashed into what I was actually supposed to be doing. And so I'm kind of wondering about, is there a trickster in your plan? Is there that thing that comes in obliquely where everybody recognizes, oh, wait, that's actually what we're meant to be doing? But we don't get there, right, unless we do the plan. I mean, that's the other thing, is you have to do it so you can crash into the thing you're really supposed to be doing. And for me, at least in my life, it really has always been what's made my life interesting and allowed me to grow into someone I never really imagined, was actually paying attention to the things that came in sideways to the plan.
Eisenhower famously said, plans are worthless, but planning is everything. And if you think about what we do at work, if you were told by your CEO, here's a 2-year project, you're in charge, what would you do? Would you say, okay, well, I'll go off, I'll see you in 2 years, and hopefully we'll get there? Of course not. You create your project plan. Now we know whatever plan you lay down, that's not how it's going to work. You have to do regular check-ins, and you're going to revise it, and things will change along the way, and that's life. Well, if you need to do that for a 2-year project at work, why are you not doing that for a 10, 20-year project you call your career? So we can apply some of the same techniques, as well as a few specific to careers, as we plan out. And it doesn't guarantee success, but not having it pretty much guarantees failure.
That's absolutely true. And I think a lot of the first step of the plan is, where do you want to go? Whether or not you have any specific, action steps, at least envisioning, I want to, 10 years from now, I want to be there. I don't know how I get there, but I'm going to pay attention for the clues. Like recently, I decided I wanted to get on more physical stages. It's not part of my business strategy, so I'm not focusing on it, but I just like being on stages. I like talking. I know, surprise. None of you knew that about me, but so I just started doing some Facebook Lives and being like, I want to get on some more stages. Anyone has one, you can. If not, whatever. And sure enough, somebody messaged me and said, hey, I'm running an event up in New Hampshire. Why don't you come up and be one of our speakers on the stage? And because I had that idea and that focus, I recognized, I'm like, ooh, I was looking for that. But yeah, if I didn't know that, I wouldn't have been out there. I wouldn't have been putting it out there, both spiritually and also in Facebook Lives. And it wouldn't have happened. So yeah, you got to at least be able to dream of what you want. Ideally plan, but at least dream.
The first step of getting there is knowing where you want to go. And so it begins with asking a bunch of questions I have in chapter 1, but they're also available for free at the careertoolkitbook.com/resources. I give these away for free. And now here's the thing, when we think about our plan, so many people think about, what's the job title I want? What's the amount of money I want? Those are very important questions, but also think about, where do I want to live? What type of flexibility do I want in my work? Think about your lifestyle as well as your job, because we want our job and career to fit into our lifestyle instead of trying to create a life around the job we want. So you want to think about your needs today and in the future.
Yes, that is definitely huge. And I'm sure we'll touch back onto these topics many times in the next few dozens of minutes. Is that a thing? But next, Catherine is going to share with us Reframe, Rewrite, Redesign, Model for Organizational Success, assuming her internet will let her. So let us all make a sacrifice to the internet gods and hopefully learn from Dr. Catherine.
I wish that I weren't having challenges, but really everything in my life is about reframing. So to reframe is to find the blessing in the challenge. At least that's part of it. It's looking at something through a different lens. In 2021, 47.4 million Americans voluntarily left their current jobs. Now, according to Gallup research in 2019, to replace a single person who's not in senior leadership requires 50% of that person's annual salary and benefits just for the initial replacement. Now, if that person is in senior leadership, that goes to 250%. This is what is plaguing so many organizations right now. Leaders are experiencing burnout. They are they have stress, and that filters down through. So I work with them to help them recognize that they can engage their current employees' strengths to reframe how the organization is working. They get to look at what they've done to get themselves to today. And then we work together to recognize the strengths that they have as leaders and the strengths in their various teams, so that the teams can then work together cooperatively. Because quite frankly, an engaged employee is 43% more productive and creates 41% more profit than somebody who's not engaged. Of the employees who stay, this same Gallup study showed that 34% of them are disengaged. So I take to them an engagement survey that I've created just to give a baseline. And then we start delving, recognizing what strengths they bring that are more than their job descriptions, so that you can create complementary teams. We're so in the habit of recognizing people's skills or recognizing a good interview, and mentally, at least in the United States, a lot of people try to separate their personal life from their work life, forgetting how the two have overlap and how they can work together to strengthen each other. So I help organizations and leaders recognize that and then draw the strengths out of their people. Once those strengths are engaged, they become organizational strengths, and everything can grow. There's a lot more to it than that, but it is reframing the way you look at your employees, reframing the way you look at your organization and your industry, giving it a new light. I even like to say new picture frame. If you change from a white picture frame to a black picture frame, different colors come out. It's the same idea. You get to look at what is amazing, what strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results do we have and do we want? And we move on from there. I'm realizing I can go and go and go. In 2 minutes.
No, I love what you're saying. I was actually talking to someone who he did for his entire team, he had them do like a skills analysis, basically. But my thought is what is the perfect job for you quiz? But it was, a serious corporate analysis, and realized that something like a third of his team was in the wrong place, because you hire for, we need a customer service person. So, okay, come on in. You're the customer service person. That seat was open. He reshuffled half his team, changed some people's job descriptions, so there may be half this, half that, and his productivity tripled, because all of a sudden everyone's doing what they're meant to be doing. No one got fired, no one got hired, but just moving everyone's seats around, all the work got done better, and more work got done because the right people were doing it. And it's just this crazy idea. You take the same team, your goalie is not your best forward. Your forward's not your best goalie. You can't just mix them up.
That's the perfect example. That's exactly the kind of thing that I try to bring to organizations. That's a beautiful example of reframing, rewriting, and redesigning. That's perfect. And I didn't even know him, but it's amazing what that can do, just by recognizing what people can do that's more than their job description, and totally doing a reshuffle that improves the organization instead of adds to the voluntary resignation. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of a culture change in corporate America, because people tend to think negatively, right? So when we're thinking negatively and we're focusing on what could be better, we forget to apply, praises to the strengths of the individuals, even when things are kind of going downhill, that to pull together and pull from each other's strengths, and then you can utilize and pair people up in ways that actually cause a synergy between people. We forget about that, especially in middle management roles, what the role is as a leader, and bringing out that conscious leadership inside of a team to make it fully functional, efficient, and productive, while also creating work-life balance for that employee and bringing in all the elements to then, move up the chain and down the chain very easily and efficiently.
Exactly.
We unfortunately
Beautifully
focus our interviewing on what knowledge do you have and what experience do you have, but we don't look as much on capabilities, on what you might be good at in these attributes like leadership or team building, even things like humor. And those are important for figuring out what roles are best for us.
My favorite dissertation that I read when I was in my doctorate program was about teaching humor as part of MBA programs. So the fact that you brought that up, Mark, I just totally love, because there is a joy in bringing humor into the workplace, in bringing laughter, in bringing lightness, and having that not a central part of your conscious culture can really bring things down. But when you make that a conscious part of your culture, and you find who has the strengths to bring in that humor, to bring in the capabilities, to bring in the visioning, then you can just boom and blossom.
I'm curious what assumptions we're making in the country, basically, in the way that we do business or what we expect from businesses. Because in the 80s, I was involved in a change management program at Pacific Bell as they had divested from, the monopoly, and they were now all the Baby Bells. And we were doing a program, not at all to diminish yours at all, Dr. Catherine, but very similar ideas. But that was like a half century ago, right? So what are these larger assumptions we're making as a country doing business that keep us from actually learning this?
Well, it's fascinating because since the early 1900s, the same things that we're hearing right now from Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, me, everybody out there has been said. Everybody who are thought leaders are saying need to encourage your employees to focus on their strengths, and yet there are some places where a very strict hierarchy is appropriate, such as the military. But even in the military, there are areas where you can flatten things and empower a little bit. I love that you wonder about assumptions, because the things that I share have been based on research, both my own and others, actually going into organizations and asking them and interviewing the employees and evaluating the culture. I don't believe in a one size fits all.
Well, and I didn't mean the assumptions on a corporate level. I meant on a larger scale as a country doing business. What assumptions are we making about how to do business that keep us from learning these lessons? As you said, it's extremely expensive for a company to have to go through the process of learning the same lessons over and over again, which means they're not learning the lessons. So on a larger level, since we are the country, what are we not learning?
I can put my 2 cents in on that. It might just be my opinion, which may not even matter to anybody, but what I think is that people, it all comes down to everybody's beliefs, right? So we operate based off our beliefs. And many times you have people in business that aren't scoring very high on the emotional intelligence scale. So you've got, this is what I've always done, this is how I do it, this is what I'll continue to do over and over and over again. And when you have that, it trickles top down. So when you're creating a company, you're creating a culture. As soon as you bring on another person into the mix, you are now creating a culture. I don't know why there's like feedback going on for me right now. But when you're creating that culture, you gotta continue top down and spread out. And depending on how that leader is and the leaders that they choose to be leaders to lead other teams as it grows and grows and grows is really going to shape how that company does business. And we see it over and over and over again, the same thing, instead of taking on from the ground up, because people aren't doing the work for themselves, they're doing the business, and they're not creating that space and that growth for their inner self.
Right, but are we
And it
hiring
could
for
be the
emotional
limiting
intelligence?
beliefs of this.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, you and I talked
Are we
about
hiring for emotional intelligence? Is that getting on the, you know, like you were saying, are we just hiring for, you know, what are your skills? Like, there's a whole lot of people with great skills that can't make a sentence, and they're really a pain in the ass to work with, right? So why are we not learning? We actually might need to hire for emotional intelligence.
I know one thing I've seen. I mean, I
the
consider
limiting
myself.
beliefs of the country.
I consider myself somewhat allergic to the corporate world. I've never really held a corporate job, which is why I'm in entrepreneurship. And so for a while, that manifested as I was in sales, which wasn't really entrepreneurship, and then post-pandemic really got into my business, and it's been going great. But I've had a couple of times that I've brushed up against corporate again, because I'd be introduced to someone who says, "Oh, you'd be great. You know, you can help them out with this thing," and I got referred to their recruiter. And so I went in through the door that employees go through instead of the door that contractors go through. And just the tone of the conversation was, to be dramatic, repulsive to me. And they were perfectly polite and they were very friendly, but it definitely had this sense of you know, we're going to judge you, to evaluate you for, you know, fit into our company. And, you know, if I meet someone and, you know, I'm considering hiring someone, and I talk to them and I realize they're not a fit for me, they don't provide something I need, whatever, my next thought is, who does need what they do, assuming I think they're any good. I mean, if I think they're crap, then I'm not going to refer them. But if I think they're any good, then I'm thinking, who else can I help? Whereas on the other hand, you go into this interview, and in the interview, it's this: don't call us, we'll call you. Thanks for coming, get out, never call us again. We'll tell you if we want to hire you. Otherwise, good luck. And it's just such a, to me, I'm partly as a networker and a connector, but just as a human, it's such an inhuman process. And I've talked to people in corporate who've said, like, yeah, they're not a fit for us for this reason. I think they might be okay for that other person. Or I've said, well, could I introduce them to someone? Think they'd be a fit for that? Like, no, that wouldn't be proper. That wouldn't be appropriate. There's this idea of appropriate in corporate that becomes very dehumanizing and inefficient. And so then you get the, well, you know, I don't want to delve into their psychology too much to figure out personal intrusive things like what job they'd be good at. So we're just going to keep them like a cog in a machine. And, you know, we hired you to be a customer service rep, so you're a customer service rep. And I don't care if you're the most brilliant copywriter in the world, you're a customer service rep. So you're going to have to get hired by someone else if you want to be a copywriter, or get fired as a customer service rep, and then hopefully trip over the fact that you're good at something else. Because otherwise, that's not the box you fit in and what we hired you for.
That was my big problem with corporate. That's one of the big things that prompted Profitable Alignment. Is I found that I could do so many things, and I couldn't help people recognize that I could do so many things, and they could use me for so much more. And then I noticed it was the same way with all of my coworkers. And then I noticed that it was the same way with everybody else that I seemed to know. They're like, oh, but I could do this, and I could do this, and they just don't know. And I thought, let's help them know, because they're missing out on untapped potential. Now, I have thrillingly come across companies that get it, that say, yes, we hired this person for such and such, and then discovered, oh my goodness, and you can do this, and you can do this, and let's see what we can do. And I found a few of those, and I get super excited and invite them to be on my podcast. But there are others that just need that extra boost, and sometimes they need to see that other people in our industry are able to tap into the other strengths and not put people as a cog in a wheel, and recognize, oh my goodness, you mean my master gardener, who is also a secretary, can do all of this research because that's what she had to do as a master gardener in her personal life. And she can bring that here and make things so much better and break the cog and make it more streamlined. It's trying to help everybody catch that vision, because some have it and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I see in the entrepreneurial space, which much more free flowing. A lot of the entrepreneurs I know, they may have 10 people on their team and 0 employees. It's all 1099s. Each one works for 3 other people, and it's very free flowing. And essentially because it is project based, so you're doing my web design and we're paying you to do that. And if you want to do something else, we're going to pay you for that too. But I think that also opens people up to what else can we buy from you? I like you. I like working with you. How can we make you do more for us? And then, crazy idea, when you do more work for someone, they pay you more for it, as opposed to when you cover the job vacancy because somebody quit and we couldn't replace them. Well, you'll just do 2 jobs, but we bought you for $60,000 a year, and that's what we rented your carcass sitting in this chair for 40 hours a week for. So that's doesn't matter what you're doing because you're just a cog in a machine doing what you're supposed to do, and that's what we rent your body for. That apparently stunned everyone to silence. So,
I couldn't unmute. Almost nothing can stun me into silence, only here and there. But a mute button that won't work, that's...
I'm excited to hear more about what Christina and Nicole do.
Yes, I was going to transition over to Christina to talk about transforming shadow.
I have to recover from my flashback, Michael. Because they did literally put 2 jobs together and tell me I got to do that and get paid for one.
Did they at least give you a promotion, like a fancier title?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this person whose life I did not want said, and then you can end up just like me. It's like, no, I'm going to, and
thanks for the warning.
Yeah. And utterly against everyone's advice. In that moment, I just said, I'm going to make this easier for everyone. I quit.
Which I'm sure drove them into heart palpitations because they'd already lost half that job. And then they just lost the other half.
Right. But anyway.
And then they're like, where's Dr. Catherine to save us?
Right. That was the end of my adventure in corporate America. And I became utterly unemployable after that. So there we are.
Congratulations.
Right.
So tell us what you do.
Okay.
About this transforming of shadow.
All right. So after that adventure at Pacific Bell, anyway, so there was a long and circuitous path that got me to where I am now. So what I am doing is working with people to identify the ways in which they are fragmented, which is one of the ways that people deal with trauma and abuse in their life. And I am including in that being stuck as in a cog in a wheel at a business to be able to put food on the table for your children. I mean, that can be abusive. And so I'm using those terms not necessarily in the psychological sense, specifically as they would be defined in some psychological or legal sense, but just that sense of I, as a human being, feel I am being constricted from living into my potential, my dreams, and what I feel I'm really here to do with my life, that I am not being supported and encouraged to grow into my capacity. And because of that, it's like a cheese grater. Life is a cheese grater and I'm the cheese and I'm losing parts of myself trying to get through every day and just feed my children, just love my spouse, like just trying to do a life, and it's hurting. And so consequently, so like Nicole was talking about people's beliefs. Well, part of the reason that people hold on to these beliefs is these kinds of experiences where they actually get part of themselves gets split off. So we fragment in different ways. And so the biggest problem we have relative to this, because we have many big problems right now, but relative to this is all of this fragmentation is not the same. And so, as with all things, if I need to drive a nail, I would like a hammer, not a chainsaw, right? So the important thing is we need to identify the fragmentation correctly to bring to it the right path of repair. It can all be repaired, right? It's not all a psychological process, though. And we do live in a culture that tends to say we need to resolve all this stuff psychologically. We make an assumption it's a psychological problem. And many of these problems are actually much more easily addressed through means that access our more intuitive self, our emotional self, the way in which things can come together for us while we're sleeping, like a way to intentionally begin to engage with those aspects of ourselves that we all have that we've really been trained away from, right? We got told to sit in school, be still, pay attention to what we're shoving into your brain and regurgitate it back. That is really not a way to bring out the best qualities in a person in terms of learning, but it doesn't develop the wholeness of how we know things. We know things from our gut. We know things intuitively in our heart. We know things in our mind that we didn't learn. These are all ways we all know or listen to our different wisdoms. We have a lot of wisdom in our mind, but it doesn't do everything well, right? And so what I'm trying to help people to do is learn to access all of those wisdoms and make more aligned, coherent, internal personal decisions. And so part of that is looking at your beliefs, changing your story, all of that skill. But another side of it is, okay, I'm doing all of that. Why do I keep falling into the same pothole in life? Why do I keep repeating this same pattern at a new level of consciousness? Same pattern at the new job, same pattern in the new relationship. It isn't all belief. Sometimes the reason we're holding certain stories or ideas is because we've lost the part of ourselves that is really the root of that idea, and we can't integrate it in a way that allows it to become the learning that we need that passes on. Back to Dr. Catherine talking about reframing our challenges. Well, all of this can be reframed into what is really the lessons of our life, the gold that we have from this life. Not if we don't mine it, though. And we have to mine it properly. So my point in all of this is the one that we are doing the worst job actually transforming is the one we talk about all the time, which is our shadow in the Jungian sense. We talk about it. It is the actual guts of most men's work and women's work and mystery schools and all this stuff all these white people have been paying to do for my entire adult life, right? The human potential movement. Why are we still here? If that shadow work was working, why are we still here in exactly the same patterns? And so my system that I practice is an earth-based system, which is a system of inquiry. So if I ask a question, receive an answer, put that answer into action in my life, and shit goes sideways, I go, wait a minute, let me circle back and check the question. What were the assumptions I made when I asked that question? You know, how do I go back and look at, was I off? Did I execute it badly? Or was my fundamental sense of what even the problem was problematic? Okay, so my question for us today is based on where we all are as humanity on this shared planet. Why is the shadow work not working? And is there another way? And I ask that because I have another way. I've been doing it for 30 years and it works. But because it doesn't fit into Jungian assumptions about how we deal with shadow, nobody wants to talk about it. So I thought, okay, let me try to get on every platform I can and start talking about it, because we are morally and ethically responsible for this work, because it is in my own shadow stuff that I am the worst to you. My worst behavior to you as my fellow human beings comes out of my unresolved shadow, that specific kind of fragmentation. And it is really my moral and ethical obligation to you as the human beings I share the planet with, that I actually get that right, that I actually get a tool that helps me to transform these ways I have judged myself, the beautiful person I was born to be, parts of me, as being unacceptable. I'm so afraid to be that person. I judge that person so hard. I've said, nope, you're in the closet. And I close that door It's like crime scene over that door, shove it back there, and do not touch these parts of myself, because internally, my self-preserving person says those parts of you are too dangerous. They will get you killed. They will get you unloved. They will get you banished. They will get you shunned, right? That those are this is what we learn as children, and they stay in that closet. And there's no amount of talking through that door that's going to get them out. So because of that, then I project all that onto you all and treat you all badly, blaming you for what I'm actually doing. And we're all doing this. How do we stop? Right? What we're doing isn't stopping it. So that's the thing, is what if we could do this collectively? What if we could do this and have some fun doing it? What if we could do this and recover that humor you were talking about? The ability to not take ourselves so seriously, right? The ability to actually embrace the horrible challenges that are ahead of us that are not going to be comfortable, and actually do something about it. What if we actually could like sit down with people that we don't agree with at all and learn to appreciate them? I mean, these are all skills human beings have had at other times. The capacity is there in every human being. And we are moving, as a culture in the United States, I believe we're moving further and further away from that capacity. And I would like us to turn around and move towards that capacity in our hearts to do what we need to do with each other, because every single human being is part of whatever it is we need to do now.
So how do we turn around and do it?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what did you say, Michael?
I said, how do we do it?
Right. Okay. So the first thing we do is we stop thinking we can solve our shadow issues by thinking about it. The mind is beautiful at executing plans. I mean, many of the things that we've talked about, identifying beliefs, unraveling, why do I have that belief? All of these things are beautiful mind things. Minds are awesome. I got no problem with minds. The one thing minds are really bad at is understanding emotions. Those two wisdoms in these four wisdoms that make up a human being, they are like the furthest apart. And the mind pretty much pathologizes emotions because emotions tend to disrupt the plan, tend to get in the way of me getting from A to B. And the important thing about emotions is, one of the reasons they do disrupt the plan is that we're actually not current in our emotions. Our emotions are actually being driven out of these unresolved issues from the past, which is what's holding on to those beliefs. And so part of it is gaining the skills that I consider just a human being's energy body hygiene. We all need to do our physical hygiene. You all remember your teenage years in school when nobody had learned their hygiene yet and how stinky that grade school classroom was? Okay, we need our hygiene. We also need it energetically. We need all those things that allow us to stay grounded, not fly out of our body, have an actual conversation with someone that's uncomfortable, right? All of these energy things. Within that, we can also learn why we keep repeating patterns. There are essentially clearing skills that are part of anybody's energy body hygiene. Anybody can learn it, takes no special skills. And so there are many versions of it out there. Mine is offered in an arc of 3 7-week courses online, and lots of practice, lots and lots of practice. But that practice connects us with other people. And this is the key to getting ready to do the shadow work, is that in our own shadow, we are least able to see ourselves accurately. Of all of our fragmentation, it's the one that confuses us about ourselves the most. It's a bit of a mind trick that we play on ourselves. And so it's helpful to do it together and not be doing it isolated in your one-on-one time with a therapist, which is one of the hardest, longest ways to try to do it and not always successful. The other thing is we first learn to have healthy energy bodies so we can be together without being mean to each other. Then we work together to do the transformation that needs to happen. And then we also need a specialist to help us, a specialist who can guide us in the realm that I call crazy logic. So there's always the part of us that wants to plan. And I speak as someone who loves a good plan. I plan everything. Drives my husband crazy, right? I love a plan, right? I love that straight logic of life. I love philosophy. I love all those things where 2 + 2 = 4. And I understand that sometimes it equals 5 because life is messy and there are tricksters in this plan. And so there's every type of logic in our life, like how to be a leader is a type of logic. How to be a good human is a type of logic. They all also, in the completeness of that logic, have a crazy logic version. And so what we need is to be able to access that crazy logic even when we don't know how to do it. And so in the way that I work, it's helping people access who in their life as a guide is their crazy logic guide. And we actually have a specialist we encourage people to go to who is a specialist in the crazy logic of our own brokenheartedness. Because shadow, since we're creating separation with ourself, is a heartbreak we've done to ourselves. And I don't mean that in a romantic woo-woo sort of way. I mean, when you shun an aspect of yourself, you are breaking your own heart. And we do that in this culture to survive, right? But we can undo it, but we have to be willing to train our mind to understand once we get that part back, we have to be willing to train our mind that part of ourself isn't going to kill us, right? That loud part of ourself, that part of ourself that our parents didn't allow, our school didn't allow, our church didn't allow, our culture didn't allow, bringing that part of ourself out isn't going to kill us. It's actually going to make us stronger. It's going to make us whole. It's going to help us be better aligned. And then we'll be able to figure out what we really do want to do at our job. I mean, part of the reason people don't know what they want to do is they're not here. They're so fragmented, they have no idea who they are and what they want to be doing with their life. So anyway, it requires art. It requires community. It requires a willingness to connect to the energy that is larger than you are. You know, the mythopoetic realm, as people in business like to say. And it requires being willing to pay attention to your energy body as well as your physical body, and realize that your energy body has an impact on your life and your life has an impact on your energy body. And that the hygiene there is your responsibility, not your spouse's, which is where it usually gets offloaded onto. So it's just a different way of approaching it, taking it out of this one-on-one setting with a therapist and putting it into a community where everybody is involved in normalizing their worst qualities and enjoying the process of transforming parts of ourselves that have been sort of enemies to what we're trying to do. They tend to trip us up in what we're doing, and transforming them back into the allies that they originally were before they were unjustly accused and put into prison and then blamed for everything, which is pretty much what we do to our shadow selves. So it's a party. It's a crazy, chaotic, artistic, lots of dancing, lots of making up off-colored songs and telling bad jokes and engaging with that part of ourselves that comes out as an enemy and gets transformed into an ally. And then we integrate them and bring them into our life. And so it becomes, how do I bring that into my work? How do I bring that into my relationship? So it's a group process. It's a group effort. It's fun. It's messy. Yeah, it's emotional. All those things people try to tidy up. It's all that on purpose with a direction and a flow and a protocol.
Very interesting. So I'm going to have Nicole talk about her topic, and then we're going to kick it around so that we have time to get to everyone, because there seem to be very synergistic topics. So, Nicole, you're going to be talking to us about limiting beliefs.
Yes.
At least that's what you told me. So that's what I got.
Yeah, let's talk about limiting beliefs. When we look at limiting beliefs, we want to take a look at the three things that people really long for to create a true alignment and balance in their life. And the first thing is to feel safe and secure. Everybody wants to feel safe and secure. If you don't, you go into survival mode. If you're in that survival mode, you can't be in growth mode. So when you do feel safe and secure, you are confident and courageous. So when we're looking at that safety and security, it leaks into every single area of our lives. We can take a look at these three pieces and apply them across the entire boards. There's so many areas where people don't feel safe and secure, and they adopt that at an early age and then apply a meaning to something and then carry it forward for the rest of their life, saying, well, if this happens, then I don't feel safe and secure. And you can take a look at, as you know, sometimes we watch our parents fight about money or fight about something else. And when they're fighting, you don't know at a young age what is happening or what it actually means. You just know that it's bad, and you take on these certain meanings, and you create a belief, and you back it up, and then you hold it all the way through. If that thing happened to be money or anything else, it will trickle in. We tend to see that things come out in areas that hit us the hardest, where money is one of those things where you either have enough or you don't. So that will come out. And that's the thing that why people have so many fights over that, and it breaks up marriages, it causes rifts in friendships and different things like that. But we really want to feel safe and secure in all areas of our life, whether it's love, money, resources, time. We want to have enough. The second one is approval. We all want to feel like we're respected, that we belong, that we're desired. And when you don't feel that way, when you don't feel connected to others, you put up all the walls. Sometimes you get into that space where you feel confused as to how do you behave around others. If you're constantly being told that you can't do that or you shouldn't act like that, and that's you, that's your personality, then how is it that you behave? You start to learn that I can't act like this in front of these certain people or around this particular group. Then you start to distrust. And when you start distrusting others, there's an aspect of that where you're not really trusting yourself either. And because you're projecting your distrust in maybe your discernment of other people, your ability to make decisions that are in support of you and moving forward, in support of your alignment and your purpose and your passion. We then tend to isolate ourselves. So if we start to isolate ourselves, we create even more of a rift between us and other people, thinking that we don't belong because now we're projecting out, we want to be isolated, and other people don't know how to read that energy, because it is about the energy when you walk into a room. Somebody recently told me that my energy is intoxicating, and I thought that was really great, because I actually heard it again today, and it's just a funny thing where if you can be and have this energy that's intoxicating to other people and ignites other people to be motivated to do things, you can do that in the opposite way too. You can be that downer. If you're always, mopey, Maddie, you're just gonna, bring everybody down into this space. And we don't want to do that, because we're not trying to do that. It's based on those beliefs that cause certain thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and carry forward. So if you're feeling that connection, what really happens is you start to ignite within yourself, and you start to create this space of being able to be vulnerable and being yourself. And that vulnerability really fosters that fearless authenticity, because you know that you're not afraid of being judged. And that's what I think is a major issue throughout all of this planet, because we're constantly creating more reasons why we should judge each other and split down and division and just niching down and segregating ourselves or other people into these little groups and judging them, instead of embracing all of that and embracing all the differences that we have and embracing the new ways in which we can look at each other and learn different perceptions, different views, different cultural aspects to a certain area or a certain topic. And when we start to do that and we start to elevate each other, that is where the magic is. That is where we're going to lock arms and just be in the space of, I can be me and you can be you. And that is awesome. And it's okay. And we accept it and we love it and we embrace it. It's really important in this space to know who you are at a very, very deep level. So I do have a workbook for self-awareness that is on my website, NicoleMajik.com. It's in the Welcome Center. It's in the free resources section. If anybody wants to work on that, it goes through so many different aspects, including what your values are and really getting into those spaces. The third thing is we want to feel empowered. We don't want to be in control. We want to feel empowered. And when we don't feel empowered, that's when we move into that space of wanting to control everything. If I can't gain it, I want to control it. So when we try to control things, what do? We spiral more and more out of control. We start to doubt ourselves, and then you feel small and insignificant, which then propagates all the other things of not feeling like you belong and all of that. But when you do feel empowered, you then trust yourself to not only make decisions that are good for you, but also for all of those around you. And that can be family, friends, work people that you're in organizations with, church, communities, everything. And you begin to empower those other people, and then you start working together as a close unit. And that's what we're missing in the corporate America, is working as teams in a close unit because of all of the things that we have that make us feel small and insignificant and not feeling like we belong and not trusting others and all of those things that go right back to those beliefs. So when we take a look at all of the different beliefs that we can have, when we look in this space, it all deduces down to wanting to feel safe and secure, wanting to be empowered and in control of our own lives in an empowered way, not to force control over it, and feeling like we belong, that we're loved, that we're supported, and all of those types of things. And that's what I do with my clients. And I've had clients tell me that they can't even remember the pain that they were in before, that massive pain that they were in before, and because they love their life so much now after doing the work. So that's what I hope everybody gets to be in that space.
That's great. Yeah, we're just saying about empowerment. Just reminded me of a conversation I had yesterday. I was talking to, I'm part of the local Economic Development Commission, and when we try to development in our town, sometimes some locals will come out and they'll have concerns, and I think what happens is that they don't feel empowered at the meetings. You have 3 minutes to talk and then shut up and sit down. And so, well, if you can't talk at the meeting, what are you going to do? Shut up and sit down? No. Go on Facebook, launch a website, tell all your neighbors, write the paper, call everybody. And that's what's happening with these developments, is you were having these very stifling public meetings, and because they don't feel heard. And I was trying to explain that, and the feedback was, well, they just need to learn to be more polite and work in the process, and blah, blah. And it was entirely they're thinking in their own what they wanted, and not what these people who are upset in the public want. I'm like, you need to make them feel heard. You need to make them feel empowered. Otherwise, they're going to find their power. People who want to fulfill a need are going to fulfill a need, whether you give them way to or you make them find their own, they're going to fulfill it. So either give them a door or you're going to have a hole in the wall.
And it's finding that way to do that in a very conscious, inclusive way, right? Mm-hmm. And again, it kind of goes back to that space of when people don't know what to do to create that space because they haven't learned it, mm-hmm. or they don't even know about it, or they're just not aware enough to stay in that space. Even very conscious, aware people can dip down, but it's how long you stay down here, right? Mm-hmm. You can have a bad day. Life isn't all about how wonderful every moment is every second of the day. We have challenges and we have feelings, and we have negative feelings for a reason. We have those feelings to indicate something is out of alignment with who you are and what is this situation that you are in. So we want to move out of that space, but we want to do that in a healthy way, right? And not in the because we can move out of a space that this doesn't feel good, so I can just procrastinate and not do it. Well, that's not going to actually create a resolve. It's going to hold it off and build it up so it becomes bigger. So it's
That's great stuff. So we are about to move out of the space between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock Eastern. So I'm going to have us quickly go around and maybe 30 seconds or so, final thoughts. If you want to share something, point to a link. Hopefully I have the right links in the banners. Final sign-offs for folks, and then everyone stick around for a minute afterwards, and we can talk after we go off the air. So Dr. Catherine, final thoughts.
First of all, thank you for getting this group together. I love that we talked about life in work and life at home and how they all overlapped. We always can reframe, rewrite, and redesign. It's all a matter of understanding who we are, what we want, and what we can contribute, and then finding out the same thing about the people around us. We can all create synergy and complementary teams.
Great. Christina.
Thank you. Thank you for having our little power lunch here. Thank you, Michael. I just wanted to let people know that if they do go to lastmasscenter.org, all the different skills that I talked about are easily learnable, practicable, and they're all available in online courses in our online curriculum. Every course is offered once a year. So you might have missed the one you want, but it'll circle back around next year. So join the mailing list and you'll find out. And I just wanted to say that I feel that in many ways, the ability to bring alignment with our work life and our home life is to realize that we're the common denominator and invest in ourselves and the changes that we want to make in our own internal wholeness. And then we'll bring that to wherever we are and to whomever we're with.
That's great. I had someone say to me once, the common factor in all the relationships that have gone badly is you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that hurts, but it's true. Yeah. I don't think it was meant lovingly, but it was very true. So, and Mark.
If you want to get better at skills like networking, negotiating, leading, these are all learnable skills. And over 20 years of teaching at MIT, we learned how to distill them down into things you can learn. You can go to my website, thecareertoolkitbook.com. The resources page has a number of free resources. The apps page has a free app. And then, of course, you can also see where to get the book or get in touch with me. Hope to hear from you.
Great. And Nicole.
I just want to say that just like happiness, the leadership all starts within yourself. So really getting to know yourself is going to create the reality that you desire. So thank you, Michael, so much for having us all here today to bring together a whole bunch of wisdom in a very short period of time. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you. And then I want to encourage you all, if you go to my links page, guyknowsaguy.com/links, I have a couple of cool things going on coming up. And then also I do have a motivational podcast called Morning Motivation, at morningmotivation.fun, called Morning Motivation. Every day, a quick hit of inspiration and motivation on various topics that you might enjoy. It's free and totally worth twice that amount. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to all of our guests and to all of our viewers for watching. And we are here every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, which I guess is 11 a.m. Pacific or whatever time that is where you are. And it's currently Eastern Daylight Time, sometimes Eastern Standard Time. Maybe they're changing that. I don't know. We have computers to do the math for you. But 2 p.m. Eastern Time, the time where I am, is when we do this every Friday. Thank you all for being on the show, and thank you for watching.